carried and raised his children alone while he built an empire, and as Maya listened, arms crossed tight around herself, she wanted to scream that it was too late, that apologies didn't buy back years of missed birthdays, sick nights, eviction notices, or the shame of standing in food pantry lines. But then the kid's bedroom door opened and 8-year-old Jordan and his twin sister Ava stepped out rubbing their eyes, and when Ethan knelt down and smiled gently at them, introducing himself, simply as a friend of your mom's. Something inside Maya cracked because she saw curiosity instead of fear in her children's eyes, and later that morning, after the kids left for school with full stomachs and excitement about pancakes they couldn't stop talking about, Ethan sat across from Maya at the small kitchen table and said he wasn't there to take anything away, only to make things right, offering financial support, a better home, opportunities she'd never been able to give them. And Maya laughed bitterly because she knew money didn't erase abandonment, but over the following weeks, Ethan kept showing up. Not with grand gestures at first, but with consistency. Fixing the broken sink himself, helping Jordan with math homework, listening to Ava ramble about her drawings, and slowly, against her better judgment, Maya saw genuine regret in him. But the real twist came when Maya learned through a chance encounter at her cleaning job in a downtown office building that Ethan's sudden interest in his past wasn't entirely selfless, because a rival company was threatening to expose a long-buried scandal involving his identity change and alleged abandonment of a pregnant partner. And while Ethan denied that this was why he'd returned, doubt crept into Maya's heart as she confronted him. And Ethan admitted that while the threat was real, it hadn't forced him to care, it had only forced him to finally look. And just as Maya was beginning to believe in his intentions, disaster struck when Child Protective Services showed up at her door following an anonymous report claiming she was an unfit mother living beyond her means. A report clearly designed to intimidate her, and when Ethan offered to use his lawyers to make it disappear, Maya refused, standing firm in her dignity, determined not to owe him or anyone else her motherhood. And it was during the court proceedings that the truth came out. Ethan had not abandoned her all those years ago by choice, but because his wealthy father had paid off the university, erased his records, and forcibly sent him overseas after threatening Maya's safety. A secret Ethan had been too ashamed and afraid to uncover until now, and the revelation shattered Maya's long-held anger even as it reopened old wounds. But the final betrayal came when she discovered that Ethan's board of directors planned to use her and the children as a publicity shield, pushing him to publicly acknowledge them to boost his image while quietly pressuring Maya to sign non-disclosure agreements. And this time, Ethan chose differently, resigning as CEO in a move that shocked the business world, choosing his children over power. And in the aftermath, as media storms raged and fortunes shifted, Maya found herself standing at a crossroads, realizing that while she could never get back what was lost, she could choose what came next. And months later, in a modest but warm home paid for not by guilt but by partnership, Maya watched Ethan burn pancakes while the kids laughed, realizing that life didn't always give happy beginnings. But sometimes, just sometimes, it gave second chances forged through pain, truth, and courage. And she finally understood that the moment she woke up and found the CEO making breakfast wasn't the miracle. The miracle was that she had survived long enough to demand more than apologies and had built a life strong enough to decide whether to let someone back into it. And as the sun rose higher that day, Maya knew her story wasn't about a man who came back rich, but about a woman who had never been poor in strength, even when the world tried to break her. Before this story even begins, let me ask you something. Have you ever woken up one ordinary morning only to realize your entire life was about to change forever? If you believe in unexpected miracles, hidden betrayals, and moments that make your heart stop, then you need to hear this story to the very end. And if stories like this move you, inspire you, and remind you that hope can rise from the hardest places, make sure you subscribe right now because you don't want to miss what comes next. Now let me tell you about the morning a struggling black single mother woke up and found a billionaire CEO standing in her kitchen making breakfast. And the words he spoke next left her completely frozen. Maya Johnson had learned to wake up quietly, the kind of quiet that came from years of not wanting to disturb sleeping children or a world that never seemed to notice how hard she worked just to survive. And on that particular morning the sun was barely rising through the thin curtains of her small two-bedroom apartment on the south side of Chicago when something felt wrong. Not dangerous wrong, but impossibly out of place, because instead of the usual silence or the distant hum of traffic, she smelled real bacon, sizzling, rich, buttery, and her first groggy thought was that she must still be dreaming because bacon was a luxury she hadn't bought in months. Not since she'd decided cereal and toast were cheaper and lasted longer. So she lay there for a moment listening, heart slowly beginning to pound as she heard the unmistakable clink of a pan, the low hum of a man softly humming an unfamiliar tune, and then footsteps moving confidently around her kitchen as if whoever it was belonged there, and fear rushed through her chest as she shot upright in bed, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. But before she could move, her bedroom door creaked open and there he stood, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a crisp white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, dark slacks, barefoot, holding a spatula like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Maya's breath caught because she recognized him instantly even though she'd only ever seen his face on billboards, business magazines, and late-night news segments. Ethan Cole, tech billionaire, CEO of Cole Dynamics, one of the richest men in America, was standing in her apartment smiling at her like this was perfectly normal, and when he said, "Good morning, Maya. I hope you don't mind. I figured you and the kids deserved a real breakfast." Her entire body went cold as if time itself had stopped, because no one that powerful was supposed to know her name, let alone be standing in her kitchen at 6 in the morning cooking eggs, and her mind scrambled for logic, fear, anger, disbelief all colliding as she demanded to know who he was, why he was there, and how he'd gotten in, and Ethan calmly replied that the door had been unlocked, that she'd forgotten. Again, like she often did when she was exhausted, and that yes, he was exactly who she thought he was, but before she could scream or call the police, he said the words that truly froze her. "I'm your children's father." And the room spun as memories she had buried deep clawed their way back to the surface, memories of a different life, a different name, a different version of herself before she was Maya Johnson, the struggling single mother, and before he was Ethan Cole, the untouchable CEO. Back when she was just Maya Brooks, a scholarship student at Stanford working 2 jobs, and he was Ethan Carter, a brilliant but broke engineering student who shared her late-night study sessions, her dreams, her laughter, and eventually her bed, and she remembered the love that had burned bright and fast, the plans they made, the night everything shattered when she told him she was pregnant and he disappeared without a word. No calls, no emails, nothing but silence that forced her to drop out of school, change her last name, and rebuild her life brick by brick while raising twins alone. And now here he was, years later, rich beyond imagination, claiming fatherhood like it was a fact and not a wound that had never healed. And she felt rage rise up as she demanded to know how he'd found her, why now, and what kind of sick game this was, and Ethan's confident smile faded as he explained that he hadn't known, not until 3 weeks ago when a private investigator he'd hired for an unrelated matter stumbled across birth records tied to her old name, and that he'd spent days confirming it, staring at photos of her children online from a school fundraiser page, recognizing his own eyes in their faces, and realizing that the woman he had loved, the woman he'd failed, had